Am I audible, right? So the screen is visible. Can somebody answer? Both are fine. My voice and the screen.
Yes, madam.
Okay. So today is our fourth lecture to the database management systems. I hope your practical session of DBMS DBMS was started the previous days. I hope. So parallelly, you will have the theoretical experiment as well as the practical experiment. So the previous day, the last lecture, we discussed about database design, right? Earlier days, we discussed what is the fundamental key terms which form a database and DBMS, right? The data and information database, and there's a diagram, most importantly, we discussed in the earlier lectures. The last lecture, we discussed about how to design a database, okay? Then why database design is important. Rather than without a database design also, we can move to the database and DBMS. But why that is important, we discussed, as well as database and idea to DBMS, we discussed in previous lecture. So today we are going to today's lectures is very important. So you have to be careful in the terms, because those terms are looks like when it comes to definition, these terms, the data redundancy, anomalies, those terms are very, very important, as well as those have related connections. Like there are a lot of chances that these terms will confuse you in the future or in your final exams, okay? So be careful with the terms, as well as you have to understand these terms. If you don't understand, or if you have any confuse, please ask on the lecture, okay? And then we discuss about database concept, and then finally you have your quiz, the last 30 minutes, maybe 12 or 12:30, you will have your quiz, okay? So before moving to the lecture, I want to show you some points. Wait, I want to share my whiteboard. So can somebody confirm? Can you see my whiteboard? Can somebody confirm? Okay. So yeah, okay, thank you. So basically, what we have to learn so far is most of the time why the data management database is important to so basically data is a raw fact, okay? From that we don't have any decisions. Then those data need to be processed to get the information, okay? So until the data and processing, there is a database. So database means we have to send the data one by one. We can't send each data one by one to process. Okay. So in that case, we want a database. So database, in the sense, it's a collection of related data, right? The terms are important. The data, the collection of related data, we have to store in a database. So storing the database, earlier we used the file system. So in the previous lecture also we discussed file system. It has two major types. File system may be manual file system as well as the computerized file system, okay? So manual file system in the sense, as you already familiar that paper and pen works, right? So in the hospitals, so the day-to-day life, you familiarized mostly the manual file system. So they wrote it in the paper, then they took those papers or white sheets as one files, as weekly data or monthly data. Then if that month is passed, they keep it in a track, like they labeled as the previous month. So June 2022 data set. When it takes to hospital, so the each patient records, when you give your numbers, they will bring you the old that prescriptions or so that was very hard to maintain the large amount of data. Okay, so then computerized file system in the sense, the in the C drive or D drive, whatever the drive, you store some Excel sheet. So in the hospital system, what do you mean by computerized system? There is a person called DSP, so DPS. The last lecture we discussed data processing specialist. So there is a person with the computer, and he enter the all data, the prescription data into a Excel sheet. Okay, then the person serve that Excel sheet within a folder and file. Okay, so that is called computerized file system. So here, so this is file system. Okay, so when it comes to file system, so that person's that so for an example, let's take, we have to enter our for your second year second semester courses in a Excel sheet, right? So a person, that data entry person, he entered the 1 2 3 the numbers, serial numbers for the courses and the course names in a Excel sheet, and save this Excel sheet as a course.excel. Okay, then whenever we want that data, that person exactly know the location, right? Then only he can open that data. Okay, so for that, the exact scenario what is going to retrieving that file is, we have to store that Excel sheet as a file format. Then that file format interact with the file system, and the file system store that file in the exactly in the hard disk. Okay, so basically this is happening while you are working in the file system. Okay, so for that you have to know the exact location, in the which drive, which folder, which file name you stored that data. Okay, so this is the DBMS scenario. So DBMS also, there is a file system in the sense that the computer file system application. Those application handle the hard disk, and the within that application layer we have DBMS. So MySQL, Oracle, PostgreSQL. Likewise, there are a lot of DBMS software. So basically, I already discussed what is DBMS. DBMS is a program which help us to create and maintain and retrieve a database. Okay. So in DBMS, it's a software. That software stored within the file system layer. So these file system, not a file system we already talked, that pen and paper and computer system. These file system is an application layer within our computer. So whenever you have a MySQL, that software needs to store within the file system. Okay, like a C drive or whatever the, mostly we store the MySQL, the DBMS within the C drive. Then when you work with the practical of DBMS, you will understand what does this mean. Okay, so there is a DBMS. So within the DBMS, that DBMS MySQL software, each data stored as a table, right? So when you create each table, to store the each data. Okay, the each database, like related data. So when it comes to the university data, DBMS, we have the faculty database, then department database. Likewise, we have lot of tables as the database. Okay, so then wait a minute. So in here, those tables stored in within the DBMS. So basically we used MySQL as a DBMS. So the SQL is a language. So basically the MySQL and SQL not the same. MySQL is a DBMS and SQL, structured query language, is a language like Java, C#, C++, you learned earlier. So likewise, SQL is a language which used to retrieve or store the data in the DBMS. Okay, so in here, as a human, so whoever store the data know the exact location to retrieve this data, right? Or that person need to change or that person need to tell the location where he or she stored these data to another person. Then only we can retrieve. Retrieve means get back. So basically those terms are important. So storing data, we called as a storing data, then retrieving data. Storing data means a file system or DBMS, we store something. That's normal. Retrieving is the new word. So retrieving means we get back. Okay, so in here, retrieving, the human wants to know the exact location. If that person who created this file, if that person didn't know or forget that location, then all are finished. So we have to search within all the drives and all the folders. Okay, so that's the issue when it comes to file system and DBMS. Okay, so DBMS, we have the DBMS software. Then within that, we stored each as a table. And when we retrieve or when we store the data in the DBMS, we use a language called SQL. Basically, that MySQL, we use SQL. Okay. So it's a language, programming language like Java or C#. It's a language. So it's bit easy than the Java or C#. Okay. So basically when it comes to data, so the file system we stored as a unstructured data. It means we don't have a proper structure. We can enter whatever the data we have. Like you can easily enter another column, you just put a name of the column in the Excel. You just put a name in the column and you can enter data. So we don't have a proper structure. Like, or you can enter text data, number data, or salary. So when it comes to salary, so it's a currency. So what kind of format you can enter when it comes to unstructured data? That's why we called as a unstructured data. But DBMS is a structured data. Structured data in the sense they already defined this. When it comes to this number column or cost unit column, it's only consists integers. They define the data types. I hope you already familiar what are the data types, right? Integer, characters, strings. So when it comes to text data, we call as a strings. Likewise, there are data types. So when in the DBMS, when they create that database, like when it called, this is a cost database, they give the name to the database, then they define how many columns those database have and what kind of data you can enter. So when it comes to cost number, they already define it should be only the number. So you can't enter text within this column. Okay. Likewise, when it comes to cost name, they already limit strings. There is only text, as well as they can limit 50 or 100 the length of these data. So you can't enter more than that. Likewise, so this is called as a structured data. We already define and we already structure. Okay. So this is the base concept. So if you have any questions within this, you can ask. So in future, you are going to develop a database, DBMS, for a real-time example. So if you take, when you have a mini project or project called a hospital management system, then you have a database, like what kind of data you are going to take. Okay. So university system also, each project, the database is the most important stuff when it comes to developing a project. Okay. So you have to have a clear idea to the DBMS, then only you can move further. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can ask. So can somebody tell what is the difference between MySQL and SQL? Any volunteers? You can unmute and you can just tell. It's not, no issues if that's wrong or right. No issues. Just you have to talk. What's the difference between MySQL and SQL? Yeah, so correct. So not that MySQL is not a database, DBMS. Okay, so that's why I asked. So MySQL is not. So they you already learned, right? The difference between database and DBMS. So basically, MySQL is not a database; it's a DBMS. Okay. So right, yeah, you understand that. So great. So let's move to the lectures. So far I just want to give you a outline. Then only when we move to the lectures, it's more helpful. So so far you have an understanding of what is file system and how the DBMS different from the file system. Okay. So when it comes to file system, they have a lot of issues or lot of problems. That's why the DBMS comes to resolve that problems. Okay. So the basic problems we identified, there are three major issues in the file system. So first you have to understand what is the problem. Then only you can understand how those problems are resolved in the DBMS, right? So first thing is structural dependence. Structural dependence in the sense, I earlier that diagram, just now I discussed with you. So there is, I told, when it comes to DBMS, it's always a structured. So let's take an example. So in this, there's a customer table. Okay. So in the customer table, there's a number, then customer name. That's all. So when it comes to file system, so when it comes to DBMS, you have to define what kind of fields those tables have. So you can't enter a date of birth without defining those data, right? So that's called structural dependence. Structural dependent in the sense, a data characteristic in which a change in the database schema. So schema in the sense that column. Okay, normally we call it as a column. So in customer column, customer table, we have number schema, then name schema, then now for the moment we have two schema, name and number. So we can't enter a date of birth in the database in this customer schema because we didn't already we didn't structure. Okay. So when you enter that database in your DBMS, sorry, date of birth in your DBMS, that affects the data access. So it called as a structural dependence. Okay, structural dependent in the sense the name itself. So each data characteristic which can change in the database schema affects the data access. Okay, so you can't enter new data schema without structured previous. Okay, so the example itself, so adding a customer date of birth field to the customer files. So I in the previous lecture I discussed, so using the Excel sheet you can okay, so let's take, so you have to understand, I didn't write because it's hard to write here. So I write, wait, I will write, but I don't know. So I'm bad at writing. So, okay. So there's a table, right? So those table, sorry. So there's a table in the Excel sheet. We have a table like there's a name. So name, wait. Oh, that's okay. So let's forget it. So you have to draw a picture in your mind. Okay. So there's a table. It has a name, and then okay, wait. I'll sorry. Okay, let's take this. Okay, this is a table in the Excel sheet. So it has some. This right, and okay, like this each column name. So this is a data schema, right? So it has a project code, project manager, manager phone number, manager address, and project bid price. Okay. So this is a schema, one schema of data. So here, using the Excel sheet, you can create this data, right? You can enter these data into Excel sheet. So that's a file system format. So when it comes to file system, you store this data as a what we call project manager data. So project manager Excel sheet, you store these data. So there is a requirement. Your client asks, like they want only a project manager name and manager phone number only they want. So when it comes to file system, what we have to do is, I already discussed this thing. I don't know whether you remember or not. So this is a Excel sheet we have. So you have to extract from this Excel sheet only the project manager and manager phone. Okay. So for that, simply you can, what you can do is just copy this column, these two columns, and you can put it another Excel sheet. But when it comes to programming, so if that Excel sheet have more than 10,000 rows or something, so you have to go with some programming language, right? So for that, you have to import this Excel sheet, and then that programming language, that coding, you have to tell, just read this Excel sheet. First, you have to tell your code to read those files. Then you have to tell your code, in your coding, you have to tell, just read those files and then extract project manager column and manager phone, and then just put another file and just put those two columns in another file. So these 4 steps. So when it comes to the previous, sorry. So here, these 4 steps you have to do. So when it comes to adding a customer date of birth field to the customer file, you have to do these 4 steps where these steps you have to do in the file system, not the DBMS. So this is the issue. So when it comes to file system, if you want to add a new data field, first you have to write a code to read the records from the original file. Then you have to write a code to transform the original data to conform to the new structure storage requirement. So it means only I want 2 columns only. So you have to tell transform. Then you have to write that data to your transform file, the new file. Okay. Then you have to proceed the original file record. Okay. So these 4 steps you have to repeatedly do when it comes to file system. So that's mean this is the issue in the file system. One is structural dependence, which means when you want to add a new data or new data field in your existing file, you have to have a you have to face a lot of issues, or it takes so much of time as well as it takes so much of memory. So like if you want new table, you have to give a new data, right? So in DBMS, that's not the case. So when it comes to DBMS, you will learn how to extract just 2 fields, just within 2 lines of code in the SQL. You can extract what kind of data you want. So that in DBMS, we don't need to save another file. So that's not, we don't have waste any memory. So just one file is there, just extract using the SQL coding, just extract whatever the data you want. So this is the issue, one issue in the file system. So in DBMS, it will resolve. Okay. So second thing is you have, in the start of the lecture, I discussed the terms in this lecture will be confused. That's why I put a quiz, because you must be confused with the terms. So structural dependence means you have, when you have to enter a new data, you can't enter, like you can't enter a new data without defining it's in the database structure. Okay. When it comes to data dependency, mean you can't enter a new data without defining the data earlier one, the data schema, here data structure. So data structure means, so when it comes to the course code, most of the time we enter the integer number. So in some cases we enter some letters also in the course code, right? So when you define that course code data as a data type as a integer, you can't enter a letter, so like ICT or something. So those text you can't enter when it comes to integer data type. So for that you have to modify, or you can't, like data dependence mean you can't enter a different data type of data in the file system. Okay. So the data condition in which data representation and manipulation are dependent on the physical data storage. So basically what is the issue is, earlier you give as an integer, so it you already familiar with the computer memory system, right? So when it comes to integer, it allocates the memory less number of memory it allocates. Okay. So that's why you can't enter a text within that. Okay. So even changes in the characteristic of data, such as changing a field from field, I already discussed, right? Field means that each cell, record means that each row. So changing a field from integer to decimal require changes in all programs. Okay. So this is the data dependence. Earlier the structural dependence. This is the data dependence in the file system. But when it comes to DBMS, you can easily change a field data type. Okay. But when it comes to file system, you can't change. So before moving the next issue in the file system, you have to know the data format. Okay. So data format in the sense, there is two type of data format. First one is logical data format. Second one is physical data format. Logical data formats in the sense how a human view the data.
Hello.
Yes, Tarindu. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, so I guess it's by mistake. So, so let's move. So what is logical data format in the sense? How a human or how a person can view a data. So when it comes to university, how we view, we mostly view the faculty, department. Then we have the course. If you have any specialization, you can divide. Otherwise, just a course. Likewise, only we view the data. But when it comes to physical data format, how a computer view. So how a computer view in the sense, we view as a faculty, computer view as a, so each faculty have a name. So that name is a string data. Then each faculty has some department. So that count of department is integer data. Then each faculty has some staff's details. So those staff details have some inside, it has some tables like staff name, staff profiles. Likewise, the computer see. So we see just only the faculty department, that's all. Okay, so that's we called as a logical data format. Physical data format in the sense, the way a computer see or store a data, we call it as a physical data format. Okay. So the next third issue, first issue in the file system is structural dependence. So which means we can't enter a new data schema in a database without defining those structure. So that is structural dependence. Second thing is data dependence. Data dependence in the sense, you can't enter a new data types to a field. Okay, so without define. Third one is data redundancy. So data redundancy in the sense, earlier we talked the table, there is a manager table, we have lot of data, then we extract those manager name and manager phone number to another table. So in here, the same data stored in two different places. So when it comes to larger tables, so we store the same data again and again, right, in different places. So that's we called as a data redundancy. This is the most important stuff. Okay, so this table, so this is let's call this Excel sheet as a project manager Excel sheet. Then these data are stored in that location of project manager Excel sheet. Then we extract these two data, we stored as a project manager phone number Excel sheet. Then we extract the project code Excel sheet, like project code and project manager. Likewise, the same data again and again stored in the different places. So it takes so much of memory, as well as it leads so many issues. So that's we called as data redundancy. So through the data redundancy, it means the same data stored again and again leads to many issues. So these are the issues which construct from the data redundancy. Okay, so first thing is poor data security. So basically, when you have one file, it's easy to secure that file. Okay, but when it comes to more files, same data have more files. So when it comes to manager name, you have to, so you have some regulations. You can't reveal the manager's name. So if that is a one file, you can easily secure that one file. But in the previous section, we extract the manager name into different tables and different files. So it leads to poor data security. So we can't secure easily. So when it comes to large amount of like 1,000 database, and those 1,000 database have 2,000 duplicate, like those data stored in 2,000 places, then it's hard to secure your data. So that's a issue in the that another issue which form from the data redundancy. Okay, so the second issue is data inconsistency. The terms are important. So inconsistency means so when it comes to different files, okay, so data inconsistency exists when different and conflict versions of the same data appear in different places. So let's take we exact different tables, right? So project manager table, phone number table, project code table. So each table has the project manager name, right? So when it comes to any changes, like when we change the project, this 21.5 set, we change the project manager. So that changes, if that changes only updated only one file, it leads to the data inconsistency. So only one file have the different project manager name, and others have the same, that old manager name. So when it comes to that, so data redundancy leads to the duplicate data, like we store in many places, but the update, when it comes to any new changes, it only, so if there is a case, if you change that data, change in only one file, it leads to the data inconsistency. Okay, then data entry errors. So when it comes to that phone number, it has a large amount of numbers. Okay, so in the file system, you have to enter manually, right? A human needs to enter those numbers. So when it comes to 100 and 500 times, you have to enter same data. It may be more, or it may be you may have some mistakes while typing. Okay, so that's the issue from the data redundancy. So data entry errors may be occur. And the final one is data integrity problems. So data integrity problems in the sense, when a person leaves the company, so you have to remove that manager name from the all the tables, all the database. Otherwise, if you didn't remove all the tables, it will give you a data integrity problems, like data inconsistency. This is data integrity problem. So this is also the data redundancy, also one issue in the file system. And the last issue in the file system is data anomalies. So data anomalies in the sense, so if you have any changes, so data anomaly from it deviates from the data redundancy. So data redundancy save one set of data in multiple locations or different files. That is data redundancy. That data redundancy leads to the data anomaly. So data anomaly means the changes didn't properly update to the files. When it comes to the changes, when those changes didn't update in each location, so each files, it called as a data anomaly. So basically we have three types of data anomalies. First one is insertion anomaly. Second one is update anomaly. Third one is deletion anomaly. So the name itself, you will have some ideas. So insertion anomaly in the sense, so when you have to insert a new stuff. So in the previous example, when there's a new project manager came, you have to enter his or her details in all the tables. Okay, so you duplicate using the data redundancy. You have like 50 or 100 tables. So when a new person coming as a project manager, you have to insert those data in all the 50 to 100 tables. Okay, if that so insertion anomaly means if that part is properly inserted all the tables, that will cause the insertion anomaly. Okay, so what is insertion anomaly means? There is a error. So if you didn't insert properly in all the locations, that will cause the insertion anomaly. Likewise, update anomaly. So if a project manager change his phone number, you have to update those details in the all the 50 or 50 to 100 tables. Okay, then if those update is not made properly, then that's cause the update anomaly. So deletion anomaly, when a new employee, so when an employee is resign from your company, you have to delete his details from all the database. If not, it causes the deletion anomaly. Okay, so so far we discussed issues in the file system. Okay, first thing is structural dependency. So that's the issue in the file system. Second thing is data dependency. Third is data redundancy. So that data redundancy leads to the data anomalies. So data anomalies have majorly 3 types of anomalies: insertion anomaly, update anomaly, deletion anomaly. Okay. So can somebody tell if a new person come to the office, or if a new employee recruit to the office, so when I insert all the, if I insert his details in the all the tables that we have, is that insertion anomaly? Can you get your questions? No, yeah. So anomalies means if that insert, when the insert function is failed to update all the tables, then that is insertion anomaly, not insert part. So update also, when you fail to update all the tables, all the location, then only that update anomaly is there. Okay. So these problems are resolved in the DBMS, right? You in the coming lectures, you will learn how to resolve these issues. Okay, so don't worry about that. So you have an exercise. Okay, so before that you have an exercise. So just give. So we will do same time. So you don't have enough time. You will have your quiz also. So just do it. So here, this is a database, right? Project code, project manager name, and manager phone number, manager address, and project bid price also. So basically, they develop this database using the project code. So if you have different project code, they will put as a different record. This is called as a record, right? I already discussed. So these record, based on the project code, they prepare this table. Here you can see the James Mary, the same person enter many times. James Mary is acting as a project manager for 2 projects. So when it comes to James Mary, we enter all the same data again and again. So here the first question is, you can answer in the chat, or either you can unmute yourself, you can answer. The first question, please put the number, and when it give you your answers in the chat, please put the number. So first question is, how many record does the file contain? How many fields are there per record? So how many records, first thing, how many records does the file contain? How many records? Okay, so 7, right? So records you have to see in the row wise. So that project code, each row is a record. 1 record, 2 record, likewise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 records you have in this table. How many fields? Fields means project code is a field, the column. Project manager is a field. Manager phone is a field. So likewise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields you have. So just correct. Then second question is, what problem would you encounter if you wanted to produce a listing by city? How would you solve this problem by altering this file structure? So did you get this question? So if you want to produce a listing by the city, is there any issues to produce a city from this table? Can somebody answer? What is the issue you found to retrieve? Like you have to get the city, okay? Like you have to list all the cities. So what is the issue you found in this table? Just think. No duplicate. So you have to get the city. So are you before moving to the duplicate data, are you able to get the city? So in the manager address, there is a street number, city, country name, and country code. So are you first thing, are you able to retrieve those city name within this manager address? So I don't I don't get your answers properly. So the issue is, first thing you have to decompose. So manager address, so the manager, the field, so using the field only you can retrieve data. So when it comes to city, so these manager address have a lot of that we can't we want to decompose to city from this manager address. So what you have to tell is what's the problem is the manager address consists of city data. So first thing you have to decompose these manager address field into like street number field, street number, city, country, country code. Likewise, you have to decompose. Then only you can retrieve the second thing is the duplicate data. First thing you have to tell is to retrieve the city, we have to decompose the manager address column, manager address field. Okay. Is that clear? So how would you alter this? How would you solve this problem by altering the file structure? So you have to tell the city name, city code, and street name, and city, country, country code. Likewise, you have to decompose the manager address field. Okay, that's the alternate solution. So did you get that one? So I guess you get that. So you have to decompose first, then only you can go with the listing the city. Third thing, third question is, if you wanted to produce a listing of the file contents by the last name, area code, city, state, zip code, how would you alter the file structure? So, what you want to do is, here in the project manager, we have the first name and last name together. In the manager address, we have the area code, city, state, zip code together. So what we have to do is, first thing, we have to decompose the project manager into first name, last name. Then we have to decompose the manager address into area code, city, state, and zip code. Then we can do our listing or retrieving part, right? Did you get this one? So first thing is you have to decompose. But I earlier the database design I discussed this stuff. First thing we have to decompose the possible place. So however possible, here also we can decompose. How can we decompose the phone number? Can somebody tell me? In the phone number also we can decompose. How can we decompose? Yeah, so the area, no, that country code, the first 0044 is a duplicate one. So you have to decompose, then only we can remove. So this is that first 4 is a country code and other is second, last 3 is, so here also we can decompose into 2 parts. Country code, the first 0044 is a country code, 079 is that communication provider, but Airtel or something. So communication provider or provider's code, the last 7 only our actual phone number. Okay. So likewise, first thing you have to decompose, then only you can retrieve easily. So best practices in the database design also I discussed. First thing you have to decompose. So fourth question is, what data redundancies do you detect? How could those redundancies lead to anomalies? So what kind of data redundancies did you find here? So data redundancy means again and again same thing is entered. So in the James Mary, we entered again and again. Likewise, that John Jennifer, we entered again and again. So these kind of that, while entering the project manager name again, so the all the other data like manager address and phone number entered in again and again. So this is the data redundancy. So how could those redundancies lead to anomalies? So yeah, so when it comes to changes, so if that James Mary changed his phone number, if we have duplicates, when we update only one place, that will cause the anomalies, right? So that is an insertion anomaly. So if that one person leave from the company, so that's a deletion anomaly also will happen. James Mary leave the company. When you remove only this field only, so other field exists. So that means deletion anomaly. So here you can talk all 3 anomalies will occur if these redundancy happen. So fifth one is identify and discuss the serious data redundancy problems exhibited by the file structure shown in the picture. So what kind of, so how can you solve this data redundancy? Can somebody tell how can you solve? So first thing you have to understand from which field it will cause the data redundancy. So which field? Only the project manager field. If that manager name enter duplicates, then only the other 2 parts are entered. So first thing you have to give a table name. So you have to retrieve the manager phone and manager address into another table with the manager name. So if that project code has more than 2 names, so you don't need to enter the other details. So if you can create another table like manager detail, there you just put only 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, only the 5 manager details. So it will reduce that 2 duplicate columns, right? So wait. So this is likewise you will have the questions. This is a small question. So this is a sample one. So you will have your the exams and the final exam, you will have these types of questions. Okay, so I don't ask particularly the definitions, but I already in the first lecture also I told my exam type will be a practical application. So you have to understand what is data redundancy, then only you can answer these questions, right? So database concept we will see in the next class. So I will launch your poll. So until then, if you have any questions, you can ask, or else you will have your third quiz. So what time is? Okay, now 12:28. So I will stop this quiz 1 o'clock. Okay. So I will launch this quiz. So the first question, you have to write definition. So for that, you can just write A dash the definition of data, B dash definition of field, like this. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, you can do your poll. So 1 o'clock, I will end the poll. So I don't give so much of time. So 12:55, you have to 55 or 57, you have to submit your polls. Then only I will receive that.